So without further ado, let's go through my top 5 coaches in the NBA. Before we get into my top 5, I want to go through the 5 coaches who just missed our list. A lot of big-time names on this list. So again, breathe, in through the nose, out through the mouth. The 5 that just missed our list, Rick Carlisle. I would have had him on there. Fantastic coach, but guys, the Mavs have sucked. Like, they've been really, really bad the past couple of seasons. I just can't put him in the top 5. Erik Spoelstra, again, another coach I really like a lot. The performance of the team hasn't so much impacted his rankings as if I think he's just dropped down a couple of the guys that have really taken a couple steps forward the past couple of years. Mike D'Antoni, I know everyone's been singing his praises because his system is, or his offense at least, is a perfect fit for the modern-day NBA, but his team still doesn't play that great a defense. And you take Chris Paul and James Harden off his team, and what do you really have? Doc Rivers, I love Doc Rivers, but I don't think you can really put him in the top 5 anymore, especially how many minutes he's played all the starting players of the past couple of years. It was one of the reasons why the Clippers were never able to get over the hump. The players just played too many minutes, and Tom Thibodeau has that same problem. So 5 great coaches who just missed our list. They're still fantastic. They would make up my top 10, but they just missed out on my top 5. Remember, we're heading into 2018, 2019. We're not talking about 2015 or 2016. So without further ado, let's get into that top 5. At number 5, I talk a lot about the Utah Jazz on here because they need more national attention, but Quin Snyder's absolutely elevated himself as one of the 5 best head coaches in all of basketball. He has helped transform the Utah Jazz from a complete nobody into a certifiable title contender, including a huge upset over the Oklahoma City Thunder in last year's playoffs, beating them in 5 games. Now, the Utah Jazz in general, they have a great roster, but Quin Snyder's really helped them go to another level. They were top 5 in defensive net rating they were top 5 in net rating total last season, number 2 in defensive net rating, one of the best defensive teams in all of basketball now for 3 consecutive years. So Quin Snyder running a great system that's allowed this Utah Jazz team to continue to grow. Ever since he's taken over the team in 2014, their record has just gotten better and better and better. And when I'm trying to rank my top 5 head coaches, I want guys who have shown improvement. I want to see teams who've improved during their tenure as head coach. Erik Spoelstra with Miami Heat, once they lost LeBron, went down. Rick Carlisle, the past couple years, that team has been awful. Tom Thibodeau's last couple years with the Bulls, and even last year with the Timberwolves when Jimmy Butler went down, they were bad. So you got to take a lot of these things in stride and also understand that the Utah Jazz have actually been one of the better teams in the NBA over the past couple of seasons. Let's go to number 4. It's Steve Kerr. Now, if you're wondering how a coach who's won back-to-back finals isn't the number 1 head coach on our list, that should just tell you how great the NBA head coaching rosters are in the NBA right now. And I have Steve Kerr at number 4 simply because he unlocked the best offense in NBA history. I know a lot of people just kind of look at the Warriors and say, oh, anyone could coach this team. That's not true. That's not how the NBA works. Steve Kerr has done a great job of being able to put his players in the best situations possible in order to succeed the most that they possibly could. Now, I know that last year they started to have some real personality and locker room issues, but look, this is the best roster that's ever been assembled, arguably in NBA history, probably top 3 at least. That's a lot of personalities to handle. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Kevin Durant. Those are big-time NBA stars who all have their own prerogatives. For Steve Kerr to be able to get them all on the same page and also allow them to win multiple championships, including back-to-back championships, that is without a question good enough for me to put him on our top 5 list. Not going to put him in the top 3 simply because I do think there are a lot of coaches who could do what Steve Kerr does. However, what he's been able to do for Steph Curry specifically is easy enough to put him in the top 5. Let's go to number 3. I know he sucks in the playoffs. I know. Don't yell at me, but Dwane Casey is definitely one of the 3 best head coaches in all of basketball. Almost single-handedly rebuilt the Raptors into one of the 3 best teams in the Eastern Conference, including last season when he changed his entire offensive system in order to have a more 3-point-based offense, and it worked. Led the Raptors to the best record in the Eastern Conference last year, number 1 seed in the East. I know they got swept by the Cavs in the playoffs. I know that the Raptors, have been able to do nothing in the postseason the past couple years. I understand. But if you're able to take the Toronto Raptors, who before he got there were a complete and utter joke, he's been able to turn them into one of the Eastern Conference powerhouses. They've had 50 wins for 3 straight seasons. The Toronto Raptors. Anyone who can do that for the Toronto Raptors is absolutely a top 5 coach on my list. And hey, he did just win the Coach of the Year award in the NBA and then somehow got fired. Nice move there, Raptors. Can't wait to see you guys take a step back because you fired one of the best head coaches in basketball. But we know that the guys up there in Detroit are certainly happy that the Raptors decided to give up on the reigning Coach of the Year. It's absolutely wild to me. Let's go to number 2. You can probably figure out who the number 1 and number 2 coaches are right now. It's pretty obvious, isn't it? At number 2, it's Brad Stevens. Absolutely is it Brad Stevens. Every single year that he's been the head coach of the Celtics, every single year the Celtics record has improved. Last 2 seasons, 2 Eastern Conference Finals, including a 7-game series against LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers without the best 2 players on his entire team. Want to hear another crazy statistic? In the second game of back-to-backs, the Celtics in the last 2 years are 31-19. That is absolutely unheard of. This is on the second night of back-to-backs. Usually teams give up on those games and get crushed. Not Brad Stevens Celtics teams. These have been some of the better, more well-coached teams in the NBA, especially on the defensive side of the ball. The Celtics were the number 1 team in defensive rating last year and were top 10 in net rating again. Watch out for the Celtics team to be a 60-win team this season with Brad Stevens at the helm. Before we get to our number 1 coach, I want to know from you guys, who is the best coach in the NBA? I think we are all going to have the same answer because at my number 1 spot, isn't it obvious? It's Gregg Popovich. Because at this point, he might just be the best head coach in NBA history. Who's to say differently? You could say Phil Jackson. You could say Red Auerbach with the Celtics. You could even throw Pat Riley onto that list if you wanted to back when he was with the Showtime Lakers. And then obviously as well with the New York Knicks, but that team never did quite win an NBA Finals. However, it's probably Gregg Popovich. 5-time NBA champion, 3-time Coach of the Year. The Spurs have gone to the playoffs for 20 consecutive seasons. 20 straight years of playoffs under Gregg Popovich. He has dominated the NBA since the minute he stepped into the role as the Spurs head coach. I understand he's had some fantastic players, including David Robinson, Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili. But again, guys, there have been a lot of coaches in the NBA who have had fantastic players and been able to do nothing with them. What makes you successful as an NBA head coach is being able to take all those personalities, being able to take all that talent, mush it together into one big family, and turn it into a title contender. Not only has Gregg Popovich done that once, he's done that for 20 consecutive years. That is unreal with a changing roster. But this year, I think is going to be his biggest test so far. The big 3 are gone, and Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, and Tim Duncan. They are gone. Kawhi Leonard is gone. Danny Green is gone. Whole new roster for him. A lot of new young players. LaMarcus Aldridge is now the face of the team. DeMar DeRozan comes into the Kawhi Leonard trade. We'll see what happens with Gregg Popovich this season, but he's going to make the playoffs again, right? The Spurs are definitely going to be a playoff team no matter what their roster looks like as long as Gregg Popovich is at the helm. Let's go back through my top 5 coaches in the NBA. Gregg Popovich, Brad Stevens, Dwane Casey, Steve Kerr, and Quin Snyder. I can already hear the YouTube comments yelling at me, why is Dwane Casey ahead of Steve Kerr? I simply think he runs a better system on the defensive side of the ball. I think if you put Steve Kerr on a different team, that defensive rating would not be as good. He's an offensive-minded head coach, and that is totally fine with what the Warriors are doing. However, I think that Draymond Green makes up for a lot of some fallacies in Steve Kerr's defensive system. But again, that's not to say that Steve Kerr isn't one of the 5 best head coaches in basketball and also, a back-to-back NBA champion. So that's going to do it for our top 5 head coaches. You can follow me on Twitter @SportsTeam for all your NBA news and updates. Remember to subscribe to our NBA Now by Chat Sports YouTube channel. We'll have all the best YouTube content that you'll find anywhere. If you're looking for an NBA channel to follow, NBA Now by Chat Sports, go subscribe to our channel on YouTube.